Om Gam Ganapate Namaha, Kaliyugada Kalpataru, the fifth delight, Shri Raghavendra Gurusarvabhouma, Chapter 53, Digvijaya at Thanjavur. Under the leadership of Shri Narayana Dikshita, the palace officials and the court scholars respectfully invited Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu to the royal assembly and seated him on a high throne of honor. The royal representatives performed Pada Puja, that is ceremonial worship of his feet, and presented offerings. Following this, a grand scholarly debate, Vidvat Sabha, commenced under the presidency of Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu. The royal court of Thanjavur was a gathering place for hundreds of scholars, poets, Vedic experts, and artists, all of whom held great reverence for Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu. However, as in a royal assembly, there were a few envious scholars who could not tolerate the extraordinary respect and influence that Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu commanded. These scholars, harboring jealousy, secretly plotted to undermine his authority and sought an opportunity to create an embarrassing situation for him. Leading this faction was Shyamadikshita, a renowned commentator on the Subla Shastra and an expert in Vedic sacrifices and rituals. The arrival of Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu in Thanjavur presented these jealous scholars with a perfect opportunity. They devised a plan. If Venkatanatha could be defeated in a debate, it would reflect poorly on Shri Sudhindra Tirtharu and cause him great dishonor. Encouraged and flattered by the envious group, Shyamadikshita arrogantly accepted the challenge, boasting that he would humiliate and defeat Venkatanatha in debate. Understanding the political undercurrents and hostility, Narayana Dikshita intervened and, with great wisdom, suggested that the debate should begin with the Mimamsa Shastra, that is, philosophical exegesis on Vedic interpretation, an area in which Sri Sudhindra Tirtharu was most proficient. The proposal was officially announced to the assembly. Accepting the challenge, Shyamadikshita and his followers ascended the debate platform. Understanding the Guru's unspoken command, Venkatanatha too confidently took his seat on the platform, prepared to defend the truth of Dvaita Vedanta. After establishing the rules of debate and appointing neutral mediators, the scholarly discussion formally commenced, an event that would soon reveal Venkatanatha's unparalleled intellectual brilliance. Despite feeling unsettled by Venkatanatha's commanding presence, eloquence, and radiance, Shyamadikshita proceeded to present his Purvapaksha, that is, initial arguments. His followers, emboldened by his arguments, swelled with pride, nodding in approval. The assembly scholars acknowledged the complexity of the argument, while Sri Sudhindra Tirtharu, amused by the display, simply smiled. However, when Venkatanatha began his response, he effortlessly dismantled the Purvapaksha, exposing its flaws and inconsistency with impeccable logic. His sharp and unbroken flow of reasoning left the scholars in awe. Narayana Dikshita, impressed by Venkatanatha's flawless articulation and precise counter-arguments, nodded approvingly and exclaimed, "Excellent, excellent." This public acknowledgement deeply embarrassed Shyamadikshita, who felt humiliated before the gathering. His face glistened with sweat as he tried to regain his composure. To counter Venkatanatha's arguments, he resorted to a highly intricate section of the Sulabha Shastra, a difficult passage related to the Vedic rituals. He forcefully reasserted his arguments, attempting to overwhelm his opponents with sheer complexity. Challenging Venkatanatha, he asked, "Acharya, what do you have to say now?" Venkatanatha, calm and smiling, replied, "Dikshita Swami, your explanation was delivered with great intensity. You have cited numerous references to support your Purvapaksha. However, none of them actually validate your claim." Hearing this, Shyamadikshita grew agitated and retorted angrily, "Empty rhetoric is of no use. Can you refute my statements with valid counterproofs?" Venkatanatha, unshaken, responded, "Swami, the evidences you have cited are not valid in providing your argument." He then systematically demonstrated why the references were irrelevant and refuted. Shyamadikshita's argument point by point with unwavering precision. The entire scholarly assembly witnessed Venkatanatha's unparalleled depth of knowledge, sharp reasoning, and mastery over Mimamsa burst into thunderous applause. The jealous scholars who had plotted against him now stood defeated and disgraced, their faces down. Even Shyamadikshita, despite his seniority, found himself at a loss for words. Yet, unwillingly to accept the defeat, he continued arguing stubbornly. However, his arguments became increasingly illogical and self contradictory, exposing his bias and flawed reasoning. His repeated his repeated contradictions and ill-founded assertions frustrated the audience, and his debate soon descended into mere rhetorical wrangling. Seeing this desperation, the learned scholars grew disappointed, while the neutral mediators stepped in to warn him, urging him to adhere to scholarly decorum rather than resorting to meaningless arguments. Venkatanatha systematically dismantled each of Shyamadikshita's arguments, reinforcing his counterpoints with multiple layers of logical reasoning. After refuting every claim, he turned to Shyamadikshita and posed a final challenge. Now, Swami, provide a proper response to this. Alas, Shyamadikshita, who had relied on evasive tactics from the very beginning, found himself cornered. Having taken the wrong approach, he was now unable to steer the debate back onto a proper scholarly path. His arguments had deviated too far from established scriptural principles, making it impossible for him to defend his stance. The neutral moderators overseeing the debate officially declared Venkatanatha as the victor. The entire assembly erupted in joyous acclaim, chanting victory slogans in the honor of Acharya Venkatanatha, celebrating his intellectual supremacy and impeccable reasoning. Words could not describe Sri Sudhindra Tirtharu's immense joy at his disciple's success. Yajna Narayana Dikshita, a scholar of great integrity and wisdom, was deeply impressed by Venkatanatha's profound scholarship, flawless debating skills, and decisive triumph. Overwhelmed with admiration, he embraced Venkatanatha and praised him openly, extolling his unparalleled genius. Following the traditions of the royal court, Acharya Venkatanatha was honored with a grand ceremonial recognition, further cementing his reputation as a preeminent scholar of his time. With this momentous victory, Venkatanatha's fame spread far and wide, making him as one of the greatest intellectuals of his era. This event also stood as a shining testament to Yajna Dikshita's fairness and impartiality, proving that true scholars honor wisdom above all else, regardless of personal affiliations. Hari Om. Om Sri Krishnarpanamastu.